So what was the process of applying for a show at the Passage Gallery like?
It was kind of interesting because we applied in April and then we found out that we had a show in August, like a week or two before school started. So there's kind of this like scramble to figure out what was going on because we found out that the show is also in 2 months. So it was a little bit stressful. The actual application itself was super easy. We got it done in a couple of hours, but we were like, okay, our faculty advisor is Michael Bell Smith, and he emailed this like group of people that I had applied for the show with, and then he emailed me separately and was like, you're in charge of this, and I was like, oh shit, okay.
So how's working in a non-student space at an institution?
It's a little bit different than like a student-run gallery show, just because there are so many more like deadlines and things that you have to take care of beforehand, so many more emails. Like, I learned so much about like how to get emails together just from doing the show. You know, sometimes there were meetings that we had for 2 to 3 hours, like, you know, a few times a week, where it was just me going in there, explaining people's work, showing them pictures of the work, talking about install, and that wouldn't really happen the same way with the student show. I had a lot more responsibilities than I would have had if I was like putting together like a student-run show, and I think it would have been much more democratic as well. Also just like tiptoeing around like certain things, like Anthony's piece originally had nude models who were holding up headphones, and there's this kind of like question of if that was okay at a faculty-run gallery. President Schwartz came to the show, which wouldn't happen at the Forum or at the Stud in general, so that was kind of interesting. There's like a different level of dealing with like the bureaucracy when you're doing a show in a faculty-run space.
So what was it like curating other students' work, having to go through that process?
That was interesting. There was like one night that I met with Taka at the library, and we were there until like 2 a.m. just like going over people's like Facebooks, looking at people's websites, going through their cargo collectives, trying to like find albums that were like filled with their work, like there was like some magical jackpot. Realizing that most people don't have a website, and that made things a little bit harder. Also just like going through word of like mouth. Students are always busy. They're always like a little bit disorganized, kind of unprofessional. So there was a lot of like pushing people to like actually like give me their work and like be on time, answer their emails, and I feel like that like happens when you're not paying people.
So did you have any new experiences while working on the show?
Yeah, I guess it's not so much like new experiences, but just like things that I've learned from putting together the show. learning how to like speak to people in a professional setting, learning how to send emails in a way that like isn't going to overwhelm someone's inbox, but also just like learning about how pieces can work together and how they can flow with one another, and how like that can become a little bit more seamless just through like planning things well. So I learned a lot about install, which I didn't really like for some reason expect to be like such a big thing, but it was just like there were so many parts of the last week before the show that could have been so much more stressful if I didn't have a really great team working with me. So that was a large part of it. Also just like learning how to speak to people about their work and trying to like get their message for their piece out of them, so that the show could be more cohesive. I think that was a huge thing. Also just like giving people the space to like have their work in a little bit late but have it the way that they want it to look. Like Kira, I didn't ask her to be in the show until like the week before the show because someone else had left. And she was like super reliable, I trusted her. I didn't know what she was going to make for the show or that she was doing a performance. I was just like, yeah, you do your thing, like I'll see you there. And I think that that was really successful. So kind of like leaving in a few wildcard elements, that really worked. Also just learning how to like not take things too personally when people are stressed out. I had people who were just like really frustrated, who were like taking that out on me, and normally I think in like a personal setting I would have just like sat back and I would have been like, oh, you know what, like fuck this is silly, you know, like something like that, or I would have like been upset at them. But in the context of doing the show, it was kind of like, yeah, I'll take it, like this isn't about me, and I just kept doing my work, and that was like one of the first times that I've ever done that, and I think that that actually was a really good idea.
So what things were most frustrating as a curator?
I think the things that were the most frustrating were probably, there were a couple of things that were frustrating, actually. I think people showing me unfinished work, like there was one artist who had asked me if they could like show a different piece than the one that I had originally said that I wanted in the show, and she gave me like an unfinished piece and I was like, no, like you can't do this. But that's like kind of interesting because that's something that like I think was really important for me to have happen to me, even though it was so frustrating at the time, because it made me realize that like you always have to show a curator like a finished piece. You always have to like, or at least have like, I don't know, have like the curator trust you enough to like know that your piece will work within the show. Like I said, Kira's piece was unfinished, but there was like this level of understanding on her part that like I needed the piece to be great. So I think people like kind of not giving me finished work, that was super frustrating. Getting yelled at, that was really unpleasant. I think that that was also really unwarranted. That was frustrating. I feel like all of those frustrations are kind of just like part of like dealing with students, part of dealing with people who are just like trying to figure their stuff out. Another thing that was a little bit frustrating was probably just like how much time I spent on the show and like not getting credits for it, even though I'm taking other classes, was a little bit hard to like juggle the lack of like faculty support and like constantly like having to have confidence in the show and that it was like going to look good, without anyone being like, here you go, like you're doing great, you know, like I think that was a little bit frustrating, but now I'm realizing that that was also like really beneficial to me.
So finally, what elements of putting the show together were most rewarding?
Seeing it? I guess like it's actually funny because I missed the first hour of the show because I was like still running around trying to like get food together. We bought a bunch of like empanadas from this like place in Port Chester that's owned by this like one really small woman, and like we like still had to get ice and like we had to get like all of these drinks, and then when I like got to the gallery, I got there at 5 and then I had to leave again, but there were so many people there, and I think that that was like really shocking for me because I was like, oh, no one's gonna be there at 5, like no one goes there as soon as it opens, and there were just like 40 people there, and I was like, wow, cool, this is so sick. But I think the most rewarding thing about it was being able to like see everyone like be really proud of their work, like all of the artists who were like explaining their work and who were just like really dedicated to like being there and like watching their friends come through the gallery and like check their pieces out. Knowing that the artists were satisfied with the other people that were in the show was possibly like the most rewarding thing about it. Like knowing that they were all like, yeah, like everyone is on my level, like everything looks good, everything is sick, like you did a really good job of like putting my work up and displaying it. That was like a huge, like that was a huge part of this, just like being a fulfilling experience. I mean, honestly, it's like the most exciting thing that I've done this semester because it's the only thing where like I had the ability to have like a decent amount of control over the way that the gallery looked at like towards the end, but it was also like so much like based on other people and their work and like what they wanted to do, and I think that that kind of like collaborative effort was really kind of like challenging to work with, but also like was really rewarding, and just putting that much effort into something I think was like, that's always good for me because it makes me feel like what I'm doing is worthwhile.
All right. Any last thoughts on the whole experience? Okay.